Good morning, Eddie G's Music World. We are looking at the 24th of February. Spring is on its way. Beautiful day in Montreal, where I broadcast from. And I thought I would just go to a different type of list that I've never discussed really. So if I'm in Canada, and there's a lot of obscure Canadian bands, and I took a look at the list that somebody made, and believe me, there's some obscure ones. Bizarrely enough, one band was so obscure I'd never heard of it. A couple of them I actually listened to just to see if I could recognize it. And then 3 days after I researched it, this one band, Sword, Mitch Lafon, who has a big following, has a podcast, talked about a new album from this band, Sword. So it's weird that I never heard of them, and I look him up, and then he talks about a new album coming out. I'm going to be honest, there's going to be a lot of bands on this list that are obscure to me because the people who put this list together, it appears to me that they're more into the obscure way down below at the end of the list. Now, this is a humongous list. It's not something I'm going to take one or two shows to figure out, but I'm going to probably go through quite a bit of obscure ones. Like, I didn't research majorly, like what the deal is with most of these bands. So the ones I know, of course, I can talk about them. But let's try it out. Sometimes I can click on it and get some details. They have an option to buy. Okay, number 250 on this list. It's called Ranker. They put this list together. I think 250 is no. There's more. 252. There's a band called Epic at 252. Let's see if I can click and learn something. No, there's no information there. I'll go back to the list. So I have to go back. So the problem with checking details about this band is that it sends you right back to the wrong part of the list. Once you click and there's not enough information. So I'm going to go and go back to number 252. I don't know much about this band, so I'm just going to let it go. And maybe if you're a Canadian music fan, you might be able to add something to my information. The band's name is Epic. I don't know them, but it says rock music, riff rock. So that's what I'm going to base it on. But this is something, like I said, it's interesting to research. I wish I did more, but I'm going to have some time to look them up. So number 252 is Epic. Number 251, they described it as Pythonic metal. So they're a metal band. They're number 251. Don't know where they're from. Just have to wing it. Blood Ceremony, number 250. Now, based on that name, I'm gonna guess that they're metal too. Gros Soleil, would imagine that's a Quebec band. Stoner is the description of the band. So you just have to go. This is the bottom of the list, so there won't be many well-known of the bands. Scavenger, ska. Okay, so even if I do look it up, I have enough information to know that it's a ska band. Scavenger is the name, and I'll leave it at that. The band next is Art. Now, there's no description I could find about the preliminary description, so we'll have to keep looking around and see what the next name is. Magical Clouds. Now, it's spelled wrong in purpose, obviously. Oh, that was number 248, Magical Clouds. Scavenger was 247. Magical Clouds is MAJICALCLOUDZ. Scavenger I just did. Art is the band at 246. No details about them. Maybe if I click on it, should I give it a shot? No. Something on my computer is blocking my access, so I could not get very far. So I'm going to have to go back to where I just was. That's twice I've been trying to get more information for you, but every time I do, something about my computer security blocks access to the information that I was looking for. So maybe I won't do that again. We'll just have to leave it at that. That band was Art. Next is Solinaris, progressive metal. There's a button to click on the music. Should we take a shot and listen? There's a picture of a guy looking freaked out. There's a clock ticking. Once it gets into the music, I'll let you hear a bit of Solaris. So far, it's just clocks ticking. Well, that's all I'm going to devote to Solaris. I don't know them. Experimental, weird stuff. Okay, next, Condor. Number 244, no description. They look like 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 people, but not much detail about them. Let's see. Number 243 is Tim Hecker. Drone music glitch, intelligent dance music. So Tim Hecker. Sorry, Tim, I don't know much about you. So far, I'm going to the 10th act, and I don't know any of this. Viet Cong. Sorry, got nothing on them. Braids. Shoegazing, experimental rock, and post-rock. Number 240 on the best Canadian bands, according to Ranker. Slave to the Square Wave. Don't know that. BTK, Birth Through Knowledge. Is that number 239? No, it says insert band name here. That's number 238. Number 237, Aria Tessalin. I'm looking at her. She kind of looks like she could be a alt type of singer. Not sure. On this list is Young Galaxy, indie pop. So when it's indie pop, it means it's an extremely narrow audience unless they break out into a more mainstream. So it's a synth pop, dream pop, Young Galaxy. I wonder how long I'm going to go till I can recognize one of these groups or singers. Breaker. You could buy it at Amazon. I know that. There's no picture even. Metz. Guy's got a guitar and a white shirt on, but he's Canadian and he's on this list. The Mounties. 3 guys. It's interesting to find out if you have time and you want to research this. Maybe I should too. Find out what happened to these people. Like I wonder if they're still around. You know. Here has to be French. Has to be a Quebec band. Pop punk band, alternative rock, punk rock. Le volume est au maximum. That means the volume is at the maximum. Being from Quebec, I know the French translation. It's not that complicated. So that must be a hard rock, punk rock. There, that's what it says. Oh, this band I actually heard of the first time. I've gone 21 bands and singers. Shooter, Greaseball Boogie Band. I know the name. So they were kind of a bluesy type of band. And they were kind of, I think they played Quebec a few times. So I know the name. And I probably heard one of their songs or something. And next is Sinead Lohan. Now, when you think of Lohan, you don't think of anybody but Lindsay Lohan, who had 1 hit or 2. But this is Sinead. Don't make the mistake of calling it Shinehead. It's not Shinehead. It's Sinead. The King Kong and Barbecue Show. Garage punk, garage rock, rock and roll. That's what they say. That's at number 229. I guess at this point we'll, since I am not inputting massive amounts of information, I'm likely to go to 200 on this day's show. Try to get 20 minutes out of it. Elevator to Hell. I've been on that. They call it Psych Alternative. I'm tempted to hear what that sounds like. Elevator to Hell. 227. The Quebec music gets another mention. Punk rock band called Vulgaire Machine. That means dirty machine. Vulgaire is vulgar, like dirty. And machine. The Perpetrators, I don't think I've heard of them either. At number 226, indie rock, a blues band. As we get higher on the list, obviously, I'll be more and more familiar with a lot of the bands. These guys went way over the limit with this 252 bands. FM Static, pop, punk, Christian punk, power pop. FM Static. Next is The Organ at number 224 of the best Canadian bands. Indie, new wave, and alternative rock. Not sure how much relevance they have currently. Destroyer, indie pop, jazz, indie rock at number 223. Ariel, I know that name. Experimental rock, alternative metal. Something about that name makes me think I've heard of them. Next on the list, another Quebec band, probably, I'm assuming. Number 221, they are the St. Catharines. Now, I say that they're from Quebec only because it's spelt in a French way. There is a St. Catharines, Ontario, but the St. Catharines is alluding to the St. Catherine Street in Montreal, which is the most commonly driven on street, even though the mayor is trying to make it car-free. It's a very popular main street for Montreal. Next is not about the hockey team, I'm sure. Number 220, Jets Overhead. Dream pop, alternative rock, and indie rock. Can't tell you much about them. So far, I've known maybe two of these acts in 30 acts. We Are Wolves, dance punk, indie rock. There's been a couple of bands with the name Wolves in it, but I don't know if I know these guys or not. Born Ruffians, number 218 on the top 252 Canadian acts. Indie rock, post-punk revival. Born Ruffians. The Vincent Black Show. Okay. Pop rock, alternative rock. The Inbreds, number 216, alternative rock and indie rock. I'm really getting into this bizarro, obscure stuff. Why does this name sound familiar? The Zolas. Now, sometimes they trigger a very distant memory of hearing their name. Progressive rock, indie rock. Now, the next band on this list is actually currently popular. I think they're from Quebec. I know because I used to sell electronic machines to companies. And I called this company, the name of the company was Franklin Electric. And I asked the guy if he had anything to do with the band Franklin Electric, and he said he'd never heard of them. So the company's called Franklin Electric, and the band is Franklin Electric. Now they're catching on a little bit, this group, because they're doing shows in Montreal. I saw an upcoming show for them. I remember listening to one of their songs a couple of times, but it didn't stick. So if it was a great song or not, I don't remember, but I did listen to it. Hard rock, I guess, is the best way my memory can serve me. Number 213 is Jale, Jale. They are indie rock. Oh, we have a new sponsor. This Eddie G's Music World is sponsored by the Planet Earth. Stay on the planet Earth and try to be nice to it. All right? I got zero money for that ad, but I figured I'd do it anyway. Dan Snaith, shoegazing, deep house, psychedelic pop at number 212. I remember meeting a guy who had a music promotion company. I lasted 2-3 days. It was calling schools and weird places to try to get them to sell CDs or live concerts being played at these obscure places. So I quit after 3 days. It was kind of like a weird job. And he told me he was in a band, but he was mostly shoegazing. So I figured out what that was. It means like he just looks down and whatever. But I'm sure it's not the same guy. Number 211, the Caro Brothers with a K and double R and double L. Don't know much about these guys. Bobby Curtola, now him I know because he was a star in the 50s. He had a song, he had a couple of hits. I know he was Canadian. He was kind of like a Bobby Darin type of singer. He did make a bit of make some inroads into the American music charts and Canada. He might have had I remember having a database of companies where I used to work, and he was actually listed as the owner of some kind of company in Manitoba. But when I called, they said he was no longer working there, or he didn't own it anymore. So he wasn't a big star, so he couldn't sustain a career touring around when you only had 1 or 2 hits. But he did manage to barely crack the American charts with 1 or 2 songs. And in Canada, he was more popular, which is normal. Number 209, another band, I know the name, The Deers. You hear a lot of publicity for them. You see that they're doing concerts in Canada, Montreal. You don't know much. I can't remember what their music is like. It says indie rock, but I do know who they are. So they've managed to catch my attention. We're going to go to 200 with this. Let's see. 208. I actually researched this band. Fucked up. I heard them, and it's very heavy, like screaming metal, post-hardcore, punk rock, experimental rock. So that band, I actually looked it up. Maybe because I heard the name. I don't know. The Silver Mount Zion. Don't know these guys. Experimental rock, post-rock. So I'll have to keep learning about all these Canadian bands. The Extras. Don't know much about these guys. They could be people that I've heard, but doesn't mean much. Number 206. The Ancients with two eyes at number 205. Let's see next. 204. Indie pop rock band Alvays. So Alvvays. Indie rock. Okay, so I missed out on these guys too. Steve Hill. Why does that sound familiar, Steve Hill? Because there's been a few guys named Hill in music. I think it's ZZ Top guy. There's a guy in ZZ Top called Hill. But I don't know. I might have heard of this guy. If I could see a picture of him, maybe it would help me. Now, The Haunted. I seem to remember there was a band from Quebec called The Haunted. They had a song called 1, 2, 3, 5. It was when I was 4, 5, 6 years old. So way before my time. I'm assuming that's the same band, but I can't be sure. They barely had a hit in Canada or Montreal or whatever. Finally, for this week, we're at number 201, Half Moon Run. Go check them out. They were indie pop, indie folk, and indie rock. So I must say, I have a lot of learning to do with the Canadian bands, or maybe this ranker picked some bands like deep into BC or Manitoba or PEI. Shout out to the Grigster. Hello, and good luck to your next show that you're starting soon. And so that's it for this week. There's other people. Oh, I just saw number 200, but I'm going to save it so I can go to number 200 next. So it's Eddie G's Music World. We are closing out today's show. I would have thought I knew more music from Canada, but so far a few. I'm being honest. So thank you very much for those who do dare listen. Eddie G's Music World, February 24th, 2020. We'll be back next week. Actually, it's going to be hard because it's a week of vacation for my kids. So I'm not sure if I'll do a show because the kids are going to be all over the place with me. But we'll try. Could be 2 weeks. Bye-bye.